trick is a Wonka, signed the rest of the class.
Yes. Yes, now, that was a sort of in-joke that we had in my form. Actually, I was incredibly popular and everyone thought I was great.
I agree with the rest of the class, signed teacher.
Just test me on the stuff, will you?
Hey guys, Jared here. So today I'm going to review the new movie Wonka, which I just saw yesterday. So this film is basically a Willy Wonka origin story, where basically at the beginning you see him go to this place where he wants to sell his chocolate inventions, and he ends up working at this pretty bad place run by Olivia Colman, where they have to scrub clothes and stuff, and he ends up teaming up with this girl named Noodles, and she helps him. And you also have these rival chocolate makers, Slugworth, Prodnose, and Ficklegruber. They're kind of the villains, and those three actually are mentioned in the original book, which is pretty interesting. And Slugworth, they had him in the 70s film, where you think he's a villain at first, but then it turns out that he actually works for Wonka. But this is different. This is actually more like the book, where he wasn't a villain in the book, but he's mentioned as being a rival in the book. So he is a rival in this, and he is one of the villains in this one. So going in, I kind of thought this would be an unnecessary prequel. I mean, I don't know how many people were really demanding for a Willy Wonka origin story, but I still thought it could be a very fun movie. I mean, it did seem fun, and also the cast for this I think is really good, especially Rowan Atkinson. I'd say out of the cast, he's the person who I'm the biggest fan of, and he was the person who I was most looking forward to seeing. And I have to say, after I've seen the film, I had a fun time with this. I think this is really fun movie. One thing I was at Timothy Chalamet as Wonka himself. Now, I haven't seen him in any other movies, but I know that he's somebody who a lot of people really like, and after seeing his performance in this, I can see why people like him so much. I mean, he's very good at playing Wonka in this. He's good at playing him as being kind of quirky, which is what I think Wonka should be like. And I know from what other people have said that this is very different from the sort of roles he usually plays. Usually he plays more serious roles, and that shows how much of a diverse actor that he can be, where he can do this, where he's a bit more quirky, but he can also do other more serious films. And he is still very young, and he's still pretty early in his career, so it's not that surprising to me that he's doing a role that's different from the roles that he's done previously. And this film's directed by Paul King. He directed the recent Paddington films, and he does a very good job directing this movie. And he's a writer, and the other writer on this film was Simon Farnaby, who he's also worked on the Paddington films. He has a role in this as a guard at a zoo. He's pretty good. And you also do have, as one of the rival chocolate makers, one of them is played by Matthew Bainton, and Simon Farnaby and Matthew Bainton used to be on a great kids show called Horrible Histories, so it was really nice seeing them in this, because I really loved Horrible Histories when I was a kid. And I do really like Matthew Bainton's character, where he feels sick whenever he tries to say the word poor. He can't bring himself to say the word poor, but it makes him feel sick. And even when other people say the word poor, it makes him feel sick. So I thought that was pretty funny. And so, he plays one of the rivals. The other two are played by Patterson Joseph and Matt Lucas, and then they're very good in the role as well. I think Patterson Joseph as Slugworth, he's the one out of those three that they focus on the most. But I thought all three of them were really good in those roles. Even though this one does take things from the 1970s film with Gene Wilder, like the Oompa Loompa design, and the Oompa Loompa song and the Pure Imagination song, I'm not sure if it actually is a prequel specifically to that film. I think it might be a prequel to the book, because like I said, Slugworth is an actual villain in this, whereas in the 70s film they made him somebody who works for Wonka. So I mean, I guess you could say that maybe they're two different characters and they just happen to have the same last name. But I mean, I guess they had it up to the audience interpretation. It's kind of for the audience to decide whether this takes place in the same universe as the 70s film. And I mean, maybe it could be nice to think of this as a direct prequel to that. I'm not sure if I would, but yeah, I think it is pretty interesting that they have that where it's open to the audience to decide whether they consider it a prequel to that film or not. And what's interesting is similar to the previous two adaptations and also the book, it's not clear what country this is set in. You have Willy Wonka and the girl Noodles, they have American accents, and also you have Michael Key as a policeman who has an American accent, but most of the other people have English accents. Also, I believe like the police uniform is actually an Italian police uniform. But yeah, I think it's pretty interesting they mix up those accents and have a different uniform, to make it unclear what country it's set in. The book was actually set in no particular country, and with film versions, it's a bit more different because you have to give them accents. But I like how this and the other films do still have a mix of different accents. Like I know the Gene Wilder film was actually filmed in Germany, and and even though most of them were American, you did still have some British people in there, like that teacher and also the guy who sings the Candyman song. And I thought Keegan-Michael Key was really funny in this as the policeman. I found it really funny how he kept getting fatter and fatter as the movie went along because of the chocolate, and towards the end he can't get out of the car and he says like, oh, the car's gotten small, and the others are like, oh sure it has. Yeah, that's pretty funny. And of course Rowan Atkinson in this, he plays a priest named Father Julius. I knew going in that he wasn't going to be in it that much, but I was still really looking forward to seeing him in this because he's somebody who, even when he does small roles, it's always great and worth watching. And he was fantastic in this. He's very good at playing this priest. And even when he's like running around, like when he's scared of the giraffe, that's great. It's comedy gold. It's just what you'd expect from Rowan Atkinson. And what's interesting is this actually isn't the first time Rowan Atkinson has been in a Roald Dahl movie. He was also in The Witches, the 1990 version with Angelica Houston. And another thing is, this is far from the first time he's played a priest. He's also played a priest a number of times in his live performances. He's played priests a number of times in the great sketch show Not the 9 O'Clock News. He played a priest in 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and also in a movie called Keeping Mum. So yeah, I guess he just likes doing that kind of a priest routine, and maybe he kind of looks like the sort of person who would be a priest, but yeah. I mean, he is good at playing these sorts of roles, so yeah, it's fine that he gets typecast as kind of a priest role. And another thing I liked was they had to milk a giraffe, to have the milk for the chocolate. Yeah, that was kind of funny, milking a giraffe. And it kind of reminded me there was an advert in the UK a few years ago where it was for Skittles, where it had a guy milking a giraffe who was eating a rainbow, and apparently that's how they make Skittles. That was a pretty funny advert, and yeah, that made me think of that when I saw it in this movie. And another thing interesting is, in this film, Willy Wonka actually doesn't know how to read. He sees the sign that says tiger, and he thinks there might be a giraffe in there, but he almost got attacked by the tiger. So then the girl Noodles wants to teach him how to write. She shows him what letters are, and that was pretty nice. I kind of liked when she showed him a picture of the letter A. He thought he had it upside down. He thought it was a glass half empty. That was pretty interesting. But yeah, I like the relationship that the two of them had in this movie. I thought it was really nice and charming. Now, one thing about this movie that's maybe a bit controversial is having Hugh Grant as an Oompa Loompa. And it's controversial because it's getting a regular-sized actor to play a role that should be played by a little person. And yeah, I can kind of agree with people who have a problem with that. And it is kind of taking away jobs from actors with dwarfism. And it's kind of ironic that these days Hollywood wants to be so inclusive, but like this is the one thing that they'll allow. And like another thing, Hugh Grant has been saying that he hated doing this. He hated the CGI work that they did to make him orange and all that. It's like, well, maybe you could have gotten an actor with dwarfism who would actually enjoy doing it, And like they digitally make him orange as well, and I think the hair's digital. Like you could have like just painted his face, orange and have him wear a green wig. I mean, that's kind of a problem with movies these days, is the over reliance on CGI. Um, but I will say, I do think the idea of it is funny, having an Oompa Loompa be really posh and, pompous, when he looks pretty ridiculous and is wearing has an orange face and hair. I like that. And it was nice when Hugh Grant sang the Oompa Loompa song. He sings it first, like when Wonka captures him. He sings this about how Wonka cocoa beans from Lumperland, and at the end he sings it again, like but singing about like what happened to the characters after the movie ended. And that was nice. And in the ending song, he comes on during the credits, and he says in the song like "sit down in your seats" in the song. And what was funny was when I saw it in the cinema, people actually were starting to get up to leave, but then when he said that, people started sitting down to watch the end. That was kind of funny. But yeah, I always stay like during the credits to see post credit scenes anyway. But yeah, it was kind of funny that people actually did sit back down when he said that. And another thing is, this film is a full-on musical. I mean, you could say the 70s film was a musical, but it had a few songs here and there. It wasn't as big of a musical, but this one has a lot more songs. And I heard with the 70s film, when they decided to make it a musical, they didn't want it to be like an Oliver style musical where it has big dance numbers with choreography, and have random people in the streets joining in. But that's what this film kind of is with that. But yeah, the musical numbers, I didn't think they were really bad, but the only really memorable ones were the Oompa Loompa songs and the song Pure Imagination, which is at the end. And both of those songs are from the 70s film. And to be honest, I kind of feel like those two songs, Pure Imagination and the Oompa Loompa songs, they could have just been the only two songs in the movie, honestly. And at the end, when you finally see the factory, it's really kind of beautiful, really, to finally see it being built. I would say, in terms of like other versions of Willy Wonka or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I have read the book years ago, and I like that. And I like the 70s film with Gene Wilder, and I also do quite like the Tim Burton version with Johnny Depp. And I have heard Timothy Chalamet has been saying in recent interviews that he does really like both of those versions as well, which I am glad to hear from him. So I would definitely recommend this movie if you're a fan of Wonka, or if you're a fan of any of the people involved with this. There's a lot of very talented people involved with the making of this movie, and if you're just interested in this movie in general, I'd definitely recommend it. I had a really fun time seeing it in the cinema. Yeah, it's just a really fun movie, honestly. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed my review. Thanks for watching, everybody, and bye.